Alrighty guys, so I got a video here. It's been a little bit. But it's another Ethy. I still can't remember how to pronounce that. And it's called Antinatalism is Garbage. Honestly, I've watched this through and it should almost be called Word Salad the Video. Like, this guy talks a million miles a minute. Holy shit. Like, it's so hard to try to understand what he's trying to come up with. Like he's really excited about what he's talking about. Um, I don't know. I mean, he seems fairly bright, but he's definitely wrong on this one. I just don't understand where he's coming from, I guess. But anyways, let's power through this. Get ready. Verbal assault incoming.
What's up, guys? It is Ethy, and today I'm going to give some more thoughts on some more anti-natalist related things that I haven't touched on. Let's start with one of the contentions with my objective morality that entails natalism. One of the arguments against it was just an assertion that I'm somehow silly for objectifying morality and using morality in the way it's most commonly used. Ask the average person if it's potentially moral to skull fuck a baby if your feelings say to do so. The vast majority of people would say, no, you're fucking crazy. So, if moral subjectivism, which I'm literally defining as subjectivist cognitivism, where you think your feelings reflect what's morally justified and those statements can be true or false, but not in virtue of any objective standard, the standard is just your feelings, so therefore in essence there's really no standard at all except your own, then
See what I'm talking about here? Now, that point about using common language and reasoning and stuff, that I hear that, and then I go through this video and I'm like, what? Did we just miss that point? The way the common man would use it, and then you're throwing around terms like a priori and all this sort of shit. I'm a fairly common man, but good lord. I mean, part of me thinks that he's using these big words to maybe make a point none of us are understanding, and another part of me is thinking maybe he's using these big words to obfuscate the fact that he really doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'm kind of leaning more towards the latter than the former.
Objectivist cognitivism is incorrect because it doesn't live up to the most common perception or definition, because the vast majority of people think morality is not subjective, and if there's a dichotomy between objective and subjective, then morality must be objective to the most...
Okay, let me simplify this for everybody, okay? And by simplify, I mean point to a guy who said it pretty fucking well. Mr. Spinoza, I believe it was in part 3 of the Ethics, Definitions of the Emotions. I think it was that. He said something to the effect of what's good is what's good for you and what's bad is what's bad for you. Now you could be like, well, that's just an excuse to be a selfish asshole, but stop and really think about it. Would, in his example, skull fucking a baby, would that be good for you in any way, shape, or form? No, it would not be good for you. Definitely wouldn't be good for the baby, obviously, but we're not really talking about that right now. It would definitely be a bad scenario for you to find yourself in. If we had a society full of that, holy shit, we would be on, I don't even know, it would be insanity. I guess antinatalism would skyrocket from something like that, but people don't go around generally harming people because it's a bad move. You're harming your own species, the kind that could support you, you're harming them. Now, it's a bit more nuanced than that, obviously, where you can have people that follow other, concepts and ideas of how to live, and they think that you're a threat to their way of life and so on. But even still, they're acting from what's good for them. And there's really, I guess in a sense, it is objective as far as we're concerned, as in there are definite good moves that human beings can make for our survival. And there are definite bad moves that we can make for our survival. That's where a lot of morality comes from. And then we can also, have a sense of empathy in realizing that doing his example, we wouldn't want that done to us. And we can sort of relate that back to ourselves. Again, it's really all about us. Me. Everyone does it. I do it. I'm not an exception. I'm not some altruist out here. No one really is. Everyone's doing things for their own selfish interest. And I guess in a way, you need to broaden your horizons a bit besides what just immediately gratifies you or enhances your ability to survive. Because you got to think of other people and you realize that they want the same thing. So act accordingly. Everyone can sort of get what they want if we, behave better. It doesn't always necessarily work. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of nuance to it, but I think I gave a better spiel than what he's doing here. I think it comes across better to the common man than this. I don't know who he's talking to. I mean, no brain. The person he was talking to for a while, no brains in head. He definitely doesn't use words like this. I certainly would have to bust out the old fucking dictionary to understand what the fuck he's talking about half the time. Like, we don't get what you're trying to say, so maybe simplify it a bit better, okay? I mean, maybe I don't know. You seem like a smart guy. Maybe you're way above our heads, but I don't know. Anyways, I think that would be a simpler way to go about your life. If you understand what's good is what's good for you, and by good for you, you understand that by extension it's good for a lot of other people. Not necessarily everybody, but a lot of other people would see that as a good and bad. And what's bad is what's bad for you. And you can understand that a lot of people would find that to be true for the, other people as well, in a sense. I'm not saying this applies to everything, but I think it's a much better way of looking at it than this. Okay, so ran over.
Common definition. To get the most common conception of morality, you have to bring all of the conceptions of value from evaluators into question, aka all sentient beings. Sentient beings value their values, therefore the most common conception of value is what sentient beings value. Value is valuable. I try to make it my goal to...
Yeah, no shit. What is valuable is valuable. Why? Because you find it valuable. Does a rock outside find my, I don't know, PB&J sandwich valuable in a sense? Does it ever feel hungry? No? Okay, well, it doesn't find that valuable. I'm defining the value to that PB&J. And it also fluctuates depending on, maybe I'm not feeling PB&J today, I'm not hungry, or, my God, I'm starving, I'll eat just about fucking anything at this point. Like, that value also can be sort of subjective depending on the circumstances or the conditions you're in. So, it's not always just a straight up, always this is valuable. But what we tend to always find valuable is avoiding suffering and seeking pleasure. So if you want to look at it that way, then yeah.
Use the most common definition because, I'm using definition and conception synonymous, so therefore animals can have a conception, we can have a definition, and vice versa. I'm using them synonymously just to clear that up. But I do this because that facilitates the most reasoning possible. We need to agree on the definitions or conceptions of words before speaking to have as productive a conversation as possible. And if you disagree and think...
Well, you didn't really put it down. You just said value is valuable. I think we understand that us, as sentient creatures, have to place values on certain things. We're sort of judgmental. Excuse me for a second. We're sort of judgmental, despite, what some other religious people and other people might say, you shouldn't judge and everything, but you do to survive. You have to judge. Otherwise, you would just take any liquid for, like, water. Like, you have to make a judgment call about, okay, I'm thirsty. I have this bottle of Roundup over here. That looks delicious. Or, maybe this, gallon jug of water. They're both liquid. I can put both of them down my throat. They will both give me the feeling of, quenching my thirst, but one of them is going to kill me pretty swiftly. Okay, so you have to make judgment calls all the time. Anyways.
We should all be able to use our ridiculously niche definitions of words. Think of your ability to read...
And I don't know if I've ever been accused of doing that. Like, you don't have to be ridiculously niche. You don't have to bust out the thesaurus every time you speak. Or the people around you are like, whoa, what the fuck is this guy talking about? I get the feeling you might have read Hegel or someone.
Reason with an individual who exclusively speaks a language you don't speak at all. You won't be able to reason with them. You'll barely even be able to communicate with them at all.
But you do understand, I guess, a priori, independent of your own experience, that somebody in, Saudi Arabia would value similar things to what you value right now. They may go about it in different ways. Like, they're going to value, shelter, food, water, sex to some degree or another, sort of community to help, get them around in society and stuff, friends, family, all that sort of stuff, just like you do. You don't need to go over to Saudi Arabia and experience that. So you can understand that independent of language. So we don't necessarily have to sit here and waffle over fucking definitions when we can understand basic, simple, easy to grasp concepts like every creature here is in it for their survival. and there's certain things that human beings require for theirs, and we can understand that. Oh, person in Saudi Arabia, human being. What would they need? I'm sure in Saudi Arabia it's slightly different. I imagine air conditioning is fucking a massive premium on their existence, or some sort of climate control, maybe almost more so than mine. Maybe not, because Midwest, constant temperature changes, all that shit. I just don't even bother to switch out really my outfit. Jeans and, a t-shirt. And then I bring a hoodie or a coat or something, depending on the season. Like, I got like a decent size, I would say massive, but decent sized wardrobe of different types of clothes. Anyways, but that's a sidebar. But at the same time, you can look at them and be like, oh, well, Saudi Arabians value air conditioning and loose clothes, while this guy in the Midwest, he values, having a variety of clothing options, central heat and central air, and he's not really, out there trying to stave off intense heat 24 fucking 7. And I guess in the desert does get kind of freezing, but still. But you can look past all that fluff, and realize that we both want the same thing, where we want to keep our body at a temperature that is reasonable. So you don't really need to go about this waffly bullshit way of saying it. Maybe I'm doing it to some people, I don't know. But if you could just look past like the froth at the top, and you just look down at the actual shit, like you'll see the similarities pretty quickly.
Yes, you could learn Spanish or whatever language they speak, or vice versa, but the point is, the reasoning process would have happened a lot quicker and a lot better if we just had a common language from the start. So since a common language or common definitions facilitates maximum reasoning between reasonable beings, that to go against this common language would be unreasonable. You're not doing what's conducive to reasoning, and if you disagree, just think about if all of the scientists that have ever existed exclusively spoke different languages. Think about the condition that
I mean, it's kind of weird that they do a lot of shit in Latin, a language they don't teach any of us. I guess they're being unreasonable. I don't know where this guy's going with this. I'm sorry.
Science would be in today. Also, I find it funny that people have told me that I'm somehow silly for objectifying morality. Someone actually said not too long ago that I'm stupid because I'm a teenager who thinks he solved morality. Well, actually, I think the fact that I solved morality as a teenager...
Wow, you solved morality? I don't even know what the fuck that would entail, but okay. Good for you. Can't wait to see, your name in lights somewhere.
And you still haven't, and you refuse to, even after I told you explicitly how to do it and how to create a perfectly sound argument for objective morality that makes...
I mean, maybe you should do that now? I don't know. Maybe you did? I must have missed it. I don't understand. At least it wasn't said in a way, with the... You're being unreasonable right now, because you're not speaking in common words and common languages. Like, I'm like, whoa, what the fuck is going on? Did I just step into the halls of academia here? He's like... I'm a simple dude, alright? Pretty simple guy. So, like I said, I'll be nice. I'll be charitable. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you have a good point against antinatalism. I'm just not going to be able to find it when you keep throwing around all these big terms and then you say, see, I solved it. And I'm like, what happened? Maybe my reasoning ability is not working as well as yours, I guess. I have no idea what the fuck you're trying to tell me right now.
So skull-fucking babies isn't just a matter of some psychotic motherfucker's feelings. Yeah, I think the fact that you haven't solved morality says more about you than me. Enough.
Well, I guess you're the only person who's done it, so I guess you're just superior to everyone. You figured out morality. Good for you. I'm glad you've ascended past your humble human form and ascended to, godhood. The god of morality. The man who solved it. Like... Isn't it a bit arrogant? Presumptive, maybe? I don't know. Like, it's just... What? Okay. I guess I'll just have to listen to the man who solved morality. I'm sure he has great points to make on antinatalism.
Contention was that morality literally can't be objective. I'm gonna just briefly cover this one because it's actual brain aids. It's complete nonsense. Anything that you define to be objective can be objective. To say otherwise is a rejection of a priori knowledge, which I'd love to hear the argument for.
Anything that you can identify to be objective can be objective. Huh? So if I identify, like I'm looking at my screen right now, the edges of it, it's black. That has never changed once in my entire life that I've had this, monitor, screen, TV thing, whatever. Can I objectively say that that is black? No. I have no idea what color it actually is, if it even has a color. I can say with certainty, though, like, you don't need to be objective. Like, when you say objective something, I get a little lost because we can only perceive so much. It's really hard to get, like, objective facts, but I guess you can get objective in the sense that you treat yourself as a subject. Like, objectively speaking, it is a bad idea to skull fuck a baby for all parties involved. Bad idea for you, bad idea for the baby, bad idea to let that kind of shit run rampant in society as a whole. If that's what you mean. Because we, the human beings, the ones that would have to deal with this, would not like to be dealing with that kind of shit. So, if you mean it that way, I suppose, I don't know. But yeah, there's certain things you just don't do if you want to have, a semi-pleasant time in life.
If bachelors are defined as unmarried men, bachelors are unmarried men. That's a priori knowledge, and there's a priori support for that. There's also
I guess we define the term like for this specific thing, saying the word bachelor means an unmarried man, a man who's eligible to get married or whatever. Yeah, they're not married yet. Okay, got it. But that doesn't... Like, I don't think you're going to find an objective argument for someone saying it's cool to skull fuck a baby. And if there is, man, that would... Holy shit. So what I'm curious is, when you understand that a priori, every sentient creature will suffer and die, how is it objectively moral, in your words, to fucking bring another child here? I am curious.
Priori support for my objective morality literally being defined as more than your feelings. And if it's more than your feelings, it is objective. That's literally how I'm defining objective, and that's how most people define the word objective.
I think most people's feelings on you skull fucking a baby would be disgust, and they would be repulsed, and they would all agree that it's wrong. And in fact, that's what a lot of your feelings would tell you if you did something wrong. That's where a lot of people base their objectivity off of. Like you with anti-natalism, you just think it's wrong because why? Well, it doesn't exactly enhance the, lifespan of the species, which you seem to be so identified with for some reason. Despite the fact that it's just going to grind you up and throw you away like it has for the billions of other people before you or I. Your feelings are hurt in this case because you just don't like it. You can't get around the fact, though, that every single human being, every single animal, every single bug, whatever, will suffer and die. Jesus.
Than just your capricious feelings. My morality is about all feelings.
So it's not just about one specific person's feelings, but all feelings. So you're saying it's okay to bring a child into the world, but yet you don't take into account all the feelings that people may have about that, like, say, child-free feelings or anti-natalist feelings. But you just happen to say that yours is correct for some reason, even though our side of the coin is saying there is some guaranteed negative harm coming down the road for that child at some point. Guaranteed. There's no ifs, ands, buts, or ors. Like, that's all there is, waiting for it. Suffering and eventual death. And a lot of times, well, and most, stratas of people, they will have to toil away. And if you're in the very top, upper echelons of society, you're probably going to be bored to tears. Because you can get anything you want. This is just objective stuff, I guess, as far as you're concerned. I guess as far as we're concerned, too. And that's not a bad thing to subject someone, and that's a bad thing to subject someone to. It's not a good idea. Someone who did not ask to be here, the decision was made by two other people, because I certainly don't remember being born, or being asked to be born, or whatever, what I was before I was born, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't doing this, where I have to work at my job, I suffer the aches and pains of aging, and get to watch the body I'm currently attached to decay in front of my eyes. That I'm, very much invested in, I guess, in quotes, invested in its survival, even though it's going to be, all that striving amounts to nothing in the end, because everything I've feared most is coming right at me. And you're telling me that, objectively speaking, it's a good idea to have children, because why? I'd love to know.
Moving on from objective morality, it seems like the last defense of being anti-birth to prevent suffering, no matter how much well-being or good things will be caused by said birth, is just by saying that all well-being is the deprivation of suffering.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm trying to think of a moment where that's not the case. Anytime you've ever had well-being, were you suffering? Ever? You notice there's some quality in your life missing, namely suffering, involved with your well-being? Then yeah, I would say so. Like, okay, I'll bring up an example recently because it's still somewhat fresh in my mind. The kidney stones I had. Man, that was a blast. I was pretty well fed up until I threw my guts up. Wasn't thinking about that though. Among other things, my well-being in a lot of ways was alright, except for that. And it wouldn't shut up and leave me alone. Like, I wasn't dehydrated. I wasn't, suffering another heart attack. But at the same time, well, I never had a heart attack, but a heart attack on top of that, or something to that effect, but I was still suffering. My well-being in every other sense was fine, except for that. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of a moment where I had well-being while there was suffering going on. Because if I didn't have the kidney stones, I would have carried along my day as normal. Because positive and negative have been flip-flopped in our brains. What you think is a positive, well-being, good moment experience is really just you negating a bad thing. Like your default state would be hungry, tired, and cold. And horny, probably. I imagine since you're a teenage boy. Yeah, and think of all the well-being things that would happen. Well, I mean, you go to bed, so you negate the tired. That enhances your well-being. You eat a meal. Okay, so that negates the default state of you starving. You might be thirsty, so what do you do to enhance your well-being? Oh, yeah, you get some water. See where I'm going with this? You get horny, you find a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever you're into, friend, and you hook up. Notice what the things that are happening here? That you were suffering beforehand, and then you just did something to negate that state of suffering, whatever degree it may be in. Anyways.
I agree with this, although I would be careful to satisfy the pedantic individuals watching this video who might say that's false because technically, someone who's dead is deprived of suffering, but that doesn't mean they're feeling well-being. But I think
they're deprived of suffering? I never thought to myself, man, I'm just so deprived of suffering. Okay.
it's presupposed that we're talking about a living, feeling being who has a subjective experience. That being said, there is one huge problem with the anti-natalist bringing this up as if it somehow undermines my position, because it doesn't undermine my position. Me accepting that well-being is the deprivation of suffering whilst putting forth all of the rhetoric I put forth in this video and in my last video would not be contradictory and would not conflict in the slightest. If you disagree, please be my guest in the comment section. Spell out where the logical contradiction is in saying that the deprivation of suffering is valuable, and what is just as negatively valuable is suffering, by the way, which is the deprivation of well-being. I don't know if you guys realize that, but where's the contradiction? Or if you're saying it's fallacious
What? I don't know what you're talking about now. Again, where's the contradiction in that? Well, the fact that you brought a being here whose well-being has to be taken care of and will constantly suffer, whatever it may be. Like, so, sure, I guess it was deprived of suffering and well-being, but well-being really is the deprivation of suffering. So why are you bringing someone here to suffer, feel the needs, the deprivation of needs, and all this sort of stuff, just so it can have its well-being enhanced, brought back to the zero state of when it was just fine, when it's now just fine now? Like, I just don't get it. It's really just like -1 and 0 in a lot of cases. But if you were 0 already, then what do you need to worry about?
Normally, you can also attempt to point that out, but nonetheless, if well-being is the deprivation of suffering, who the fuck cares? Does that make well-being somehow bad or not worth striving towards?
You're gonna do that anyways. We are pain-avoiding, pleasure-seeking creatures. I've mentioned this before, and I guess I'll mention it again. That is what we do. That's like what submarines do. They deep dive in the ocean. Airplanes fly. Cars fucking drive down the road. We avoid pain, and seek pleasure. It doesn't matter if you disagree with that or not. It's the truth. It's objective, as you would like to say.
No, you're just pointing out random shit as if it's somehow supposed to make me have some sort of moral epiphany.
Wow. If only you had a little bit of self-awareness behind that statement.
I see this argument analogous to an animal Holocaust supporter saying bacon tastes good. Yeah, I can accept that, you fucking moron. That doesn't undermine my position in the slightest. These ideologies...
It does whenever it's like the core thing of what you're trying to talk about. Like somebody saying bacon tastes good and you saying killing a pig is the act of murder. I mean, what does that have to do with anything? Well-being is the deprivation of suffering. It's you not I guess, okay, the deprivation of suffering. It's you not suffering. Let's put it that way. You're not being deprived of suffering. It's lurking around the corner waiting for you no matter what you do. You could stave it off, though. Now, you could either spend your entire life until you die, having to suffer anyways, and eventually die, you know, the thing that's the ultimate negative for pretty much everything involved, that is aware of what's going on, that's aware it's going to die. Or you could just skip that process entirely and not have them. Really not that hard.
Are not mutually exclusive. I know I sometimes put arguments forth against some instantiations of ideologies, and said arguments aren't mutually exclusive with all instantiations of said ideology, but at least I make it clear that my argument was...
You're certainly making very little clear to me, dude.
Only supposed to conflict with a certain instantiation or instantiations. Imagine if I just went around commenting on anti-natalist videos saying, suffering is the deprivation of well-being. That would be ridiculous, because it has no bearing on the discussion at all. And
So wait, what, maybe I got mixed up. I thought he said it was the opposite. That well-being is the deprivation. I don't know, fuck, maybe he did. But, I mean, wouldn't suffering be the deprivation of well-being? I can't think of a time where that wasn't the case. Like, I guess it's not really deprivation, considering it's... I don't know. It's kind of your default state, suffering, really. It's kind of hard to think about it this way, I guess. Maybe I got it twisted.
Has no bearing on the discussion at all. And as far as I'm concerned, when I push these anti-natalists on this and ask why this matters, they just resort to circular reasoning as if I didn't get it the first time. So maybe
circular reasoning, such as what? Like what circular reasoning?
Maybe I'll get it the second time. This appears to be a trend among anti-natalists to just repeat and repeat and repeat their same tarnished ideas over and over again.
Their same tarnished ideas. Well, you kind of are stuck repeating them because people don't get it. They don't get it. They won't look at themselves and understand how they work. They won't understand how the world works, and they won't understand the trajectory of their life. They just constantly think they're going up and up and up, and they're doing something great, magnificent, noble, when they're really not. It's like Zappa says, know yourselves, be infertile, and let the world be silent after you. You kind of skip the know yourself part, and you're just like, why do these people say we shouldn't have kids? Huh, that's weird. Wouldn't that be the extinction of mankind? And it's like, yes, it would. If everyone did it. But you don't understand how you work, and you don't understand why that isn't really a bad thing.
When you're actually just trying to move the conversation forward, but even if I boiled them down to their foundations, I think I'd still be unsatisfied because the vast majority of them would just appeal to their feelings. And the feeling...
Okay, what about this was appeal to my feelings? I maybe you're right. Maybe I just really feel like suffering sucks and that there was no need to create a being that would suffer needlessly and then die. And by the way, those two last things are guaranteed. I just have a feeling that that is something this machine, this subject, would not like. Weird.
And emotions.
And then I guess I could extrapolate that out to everyone else. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong. Yeah, maybe everyone else is just like, you know what? Nails through hands, fucking get my foot cut off by a lawnmower blade, getting cancer. Those are blasts. I love it. Maybe I'm the one missing out on the party that's going on this planet, but I don't know.
Of anti-natalists is why I think they never fail to come out of the woodwork to downvote my videos and give me views. For such a small group of people, they're just so vocal and active, and that's partly why I like making videos about them. The only...
Well, yeah, we are fairly vocal and active because there's a lot of bullshit to sift through.
The only other community based on ideology I find even remotely similar to the anti-natalist community is the carnivore community, but I really
What? Maybe in terms of being vocal, I guess. I don't know.
do think the reason why they're so passionate about antinatalism is that for the majority of them, they probably had a bad childhood and their parents didn't treat them well, and
And nothing to do with that. I'm not going to sit here and say that my childhood was the greatest. It had, I just was fucking rolling in, fields of fucking tulips and fucking all this shit. I don't know. Like, it was definitely no fucking walk in the park kind of childhood, but that doesn't matter. Like, you were talking about all this stuff, like objective this and that. I know, objectively speaking, that my child will suffer and die if it's brought here. Doesn't matter if I had the worst or best childhood. I actually don't hate my parents, believe it or not. I get along with them fine. More than I ever did when I was younger. It has nothing to do with my relationship to my parents. Why do they always bring this up?
that's why they have such a huge disposition towards the idea of people having kids. Like maybe daddy
Maybe I'm getting sick and tired of being woken up here. This game blows.
touched you inappropriately. Maybe your mom and dad didn't accept you for being trans or gay or whatever.
No, that's kind of gross, but no, I understand that happens to people, but still. No, I'm not trans. I'm, cisgendered. I was born a male, identify as a male, and all the stuff that comes with it. My father did not touch me in inappropriate places. What the fuck does this have to do with me adopting the position of antinatalism? Understanding that every baby born is going to suffer and die, and I'm not going to contribute to that. Because morals and stuff.
And I also think it's very likely that this maltreatment from the parents usually stemmed from religion and the objective truth their parents thought they had to defend and propagate. And I think this would also explain.
Oh my god, that doesn't explain shit. I had a religious upbringing. My dad wasn't religious, my mom was, but I was religious along with my mom because she took me to church. But what does this have to do with me adopting antinatalism? The most that has a bearing on my antinatalist videos or any videos I make is I might quote some scripture once in a while because, I was a Catholic for I don't know how many fucking years. Probably about from the cradle till about 16 or so. I don't even know. It was sometime in my mid to late teens. I can't exactly recall the exact point I fell out with that, and I was definitely done with it by the time I was in high school, or the end of my high school career. So that's all I know. Again, I just don't know what the fuck this has to do with me being an anti-natalist. Understanding that every creature born will suffer and die. And I can prevent that for at least, the next generation that could be born from me. And perhaps can convince others to do the same. Just looking at it, being like, wow, this is like a war zone, isn't it? Creatures just ripping each other apart to fill their stomachs, to fight over breeding rights, to fight over territory, just to die and start the whole cycle all over again. Sounds like a fun game, doesn't it? When you look at it that way.
Why so many antinatalists are nihilists. Because their brain just went into intellectual overkill. They got a sense of meaning and objectivity from religion and thought maybe even subconsciously, ow, that hurts. So they flipped to the absolute.
Okay, you feel free to tell me the meaning and objective of life. I would love to know, because, like Spinoza said, nature doesn't seem to act with an end in view. We do. We have to. You're not going to be fucking working at a job, day in and day out, unless there's a paycheck waiting for you at the end of it. You're not going to be out there foraging for berries, collecting them, and then just keep collecting them endlessly while you're starving to death. You have an end goal. You have a meaning to doing what you do because you're a machine that needs meaning. The universe does not have that as far as I can tell. I don't see a meaning to the universe in any way that my senses are able to pick up because my meaning is mainly ascribed to my survival drives. You get what I'm saying? Even the meaning that there's a life after death and God wants us to be all in love and peace and harmony. Well, what is love, peace, harmony, and being with God and all that shit? The ultimate enhancement of power. That's what it would mean to you. You'd be at the top of the food chain, basically. Nothing can touch you. You are immortal. So, I don't know what the fuck you mean by this. I don't know if I necessarily call myself a nihilist, because obviously I'm ascribing some sort of value to the suffering and deaths of other people. People that aren't even here yet. But at the same time, I could split that away from myself, understanding what I am as this thing I am, and understand that the universe, the actual, like, space I'm doing this whole, life dance in, doesn't really give a fuck what you do. We're the ones that give a fuck. The universe, all that shit, really doesn't seem to care. And in fact, all the horrible things that go on this planet really just seem to submit that nature is not aligned with human values whatsoever. At least not in a way that is what we would consider always good for us. Let's put it that way. I don't know. It's a tricky subject, but anyways, let's keep going.
Opposite, which is atheistic nihilism. I think a lot of moral subjectivists,
as opposed to what? Like Christian, whatever? What? Can we just keep going and tell me when you're going to get to the point where antinatalism is garbage?
find the idea of moral objectivism and moral meaning scary just because some instantiations of objective morality have hurt them, most likely in their childhood, hence antinatalism.
Man, that is... Like, you're such a presumptive person about everybody. Like, my presumptions are based, I guess you could say, a priori, independent of my experience with everyone, coming into contact with everything, which would be, I guess, what is it, a posteriori or some shit like that? Like, I can understand that everything that comes into existence here on planet Earth that is a sentient creature, something that moves, not just like rocks and like little, dirt and stuff like that. That doesn't count. I'm talking about sentient creatures that have some sort of capabilities for, consciousness, are going to suffer inevitably, and they are going to die inevitably. Two things those creatures spent their whole goddamn lives avoiding. Does that not sound like a nightmare to you? Or am I missing the boat?
This has a corrosive effect on society. Religion has negatives and should be replaced, but it also has many benefits on society, like giving people a sense of community, facilitating healthy, prosperous families that makes people happy, reducing crime, depending on their religion. But the point is, you shouldn't go into intellectual overkill.
Yeah, I won't deny that there are some good qualities to religion for some people. Some people just need it. Most people aren't out there picking up AKs and causing a lot of problems, alright? That, subscribe to any sort of religion. Do I think it's dumb? Yeah, sure. But anymore, I'm not really a militant atheist. I can see some benefits for some people. Some people will just never, want to look this far. Let's put it that way. It's not saying I'm like great or anything, or any of us are better than them in that sense. But I mean, I guess we just know better. How about that? So we, perform actions that would be considered better for, other parties.
We should have just replaced religion with a science-based objective morality. A morality that captures the positive effects of religion on the society and leaves out the negatives. I hold to the same ideal that...
I mean, if you're going to build something on delusion and fairy tales, it's going to fall apart no matter what. They'll just build another one for sure, but I don't really go after people who attack religion either. Because some of the things religions teach are, like you say, corrosive to societies, like policing women on what they can and can't do with their bodies, interjecting their opinions on gays and trying to make it law, and trans, and people like that. People that aren't going around bothering people, they just want to have sex with someone who's the same gender, sex, or they want to change those. They're not bothering anybody, and they're just sticking their nose in. Or encouraging women who don't really have the means to support a child to keep it and then not offer any aid afterwards. That strikes me as pretty corrosive. But I don't know. Yeah, you can definitely criticize it on some points, but I guess I'm just not as hard into, shitting on religion as I used to be. I mean, most people are just pretty normal, so A lot of them just kind of go with the flow. It's like, oh, I was born Presbyterian, so I'm just gonna stay a Presbyterian, whatever. Just something to do. I got a community here, that kind of stuff. But a lot of the things those churches like to stick their nose into, and if it interferes with other people's lives that aren't a part of that religion, or even sometimes if they are a part of it in a really negative way, yeah, I'm gonna say something about it because it's fucking stupid. Don't get brainwashed by these idiots. If you're smart enough to see through it, you don't need it. All right, there's a lot of like dumb people out there, I guess. In some ways, you're one of them. In some category, don't think that you're special for some reason. Everyone's dumb in some way, but if you could see through the bullshit, the veneer of religion, you don't need it. Get rid of it. And maybe encourage others to like take their blinders off and look around them. Some people will still turn to religion. There's nothing you can do about it, but I don't know. To base a society around religion and to keep bolstering it up and just ignore all the shitty aspects about it is stupid in my opinion. So, I don't know. In fact, it's really not my opinion. I've yet to see a really good theocracy I'd love to live in.
That Auguste Comte held to when he said, or when he talked about replacing not only religion with science, but replacing philosophy with science as well. I think the transition from carnism to veganism would be extraordinarily easier to do if we had my objective morality, because veganism would be looked at like a profound scientific discovery and would spread much like how other scientific discoveries that we accept have spread, like the Copernican theory or evolution.
I mean, they didn't really take off like wildfire. I'm looking at the date of this video, August 31st, 2020. There's still people out there who refuse to get vaccinated because they don't feel like taking it, and they feel like Bill Gates or somebody is going to track their every move or something. We got a long ways to go before any of what that dude said is going to even come close to coming true, so I don't know. Until that time, I guess religion it is for the moment, and we'll just fight them tooth and nail when it comes to policing other people's lives that don't, and sticking their nose in places that ain't their business. I'll tell them to fuck off when need be.
Theory only took around 100 years to be accepted, and evolution only took around 20 years to be accepted. You have to accept these theories.
It's still not accepted. The Copernican revolution and all that shit still hasn't been fully accepted by everybody. So, again, we got our fucking work cut out for us. I know people who don't believe in evolution. And what do you know? They are very religious and fundamentalist, too. Who would have thunk? That's weird. And they have some other dumbass opinions. But part of me just, like, shitting on their religion directly isn't really going to change their opinion on those things. You kind of have to open it up. Open their eyes a little bit for them to see what's going on around them. More than what their church tells them.
Or you'd be denying reality. Veganism would spread like the Copernican theory or evolution. So if we just transition from religion to my objective morality, there's a good chance we all...
If you just transfer from religion to my objective reality, everything will be A-okay. I've never heard that before. Because, I mean, you could accuse antinatalists of that, like, oh, their objective reality would be so much better, that's what they're saying, but we all seem to be on pretty much on the same page when it comes to, like, suffering death bad, don't bring other beings here to have to experience that. And it's the same talking points that have been said in different ways and at different times, saying the same fucking thing, so it seems to be pretty objective to me, I don't know. And it's quite obvious, you know, a priori and a posteriori. You don't need to directly experience it, and you're going to directly experience it anyway, so you'll see what we're talking about if you're paying attention and decide not to repress it.
Would have accepted veganism by now, and it would be the norm. But the moral...
I think part of it is that some of the animals we just sort of see as edible. You know, like people in China who eat dogs and cats or something, or other animals, we find that repulsive and disgusting for various reasons, like why would they eat Fido, or why would they eat my precious cat, or ew, that's disgusting, they eat squid, oh man, ox tongue, that's horrible. Like, it just depends somewhat on our palate and sensibilities, and also we're kind of removed from that here in the West with, you know, supermarkets that serve hot dogs that if you saw how they were made, you probably wouldn't want to eat them. That's also kind of helpful. Like, No Brains in Head was talking about, which got me to just completely stop drinking milk. Not that I was a big milk drinker to begin with. Switched over to almond milk, talking about how they dye the milk white to hide all the blood and pus, which, God. Like, that makes me nauseous thinking about it. All times I drank milk. And you don't necessarily have to do it like in this scientific, way. Just maybe show them how it's done. And show them the suffering of the animals, and they'll be able to relate to that, because animals aren't entirely different from us. They may not have the same, ability for self-reflection or cognition and all that sort of stuff that we do, but we can relate to them because they suffer the similar pains of life, just in their own way. Like pigs and cows can't exactly tell you, oh, my leg hurts or something, but when they're, moaning in pain, you can definitely relate to that. Yeah. For reasons that I would definitely go off on a big fucking exposition on or something, but we're almost done, so I'm not going to. You could just look at it in your own life, and unless you're a total psychopath or sociopath or something, you're going to feel something, and you're probably going to change your ways, or at least do your best to reduce harm to creatures like that. Just saying.
The story is, you don't need to solely follow your emotions, and you shouldn't. Emotions won't necessarily lead you to the truth, and they won't necessarily lead you to happiness and the fulfillment of your desires. Emotions can just lead you to illusions. Hence why so many more...
Yeah, they can, but your emotions largely just state your position that you're in, the position of where you are now. Like, if you're feeling sad, there's a reason for it. If you're feeling happy, there's a reason for it. Like... And you can also kind of trick yourself into being happy through drugs, or, some sort of expectation, or following a religion, saying I'm on the right path, I have the truth, all this sort of stuff. And you could kind of trick yourself into being happy in that sense, or something can trigger you into being angry. But these are just states that are brought on by some sort of condition. Being angry at something is because something is in your way, hindering your ability to express yourself or do what you need to do, or whatever. Sadness is because, something hurts you in some way, usually, whether it be through loss of a social contact, like a breakup, or a friend, or a loved one who passed away, or any combination of those, or a loss of job, or, lack of friends, so on and so forth. But following your emotions all the time is kind of what you do anyways. It's hard to describe, but... Long story short, yeah, like, if there's somebody selling you false hopes and dreams, like, just kind of watch out for it. Because they will just play with your emotions and lead you down paths you may not want, for their benefit, not yours. So he's kind of right. Not necessarily not necessarily at all the case of antinatalism. Like, this is independent of my feelings. Like, I'll say it now. I don't like antinatalism. I don't like the fact that I'm dropped into a world where antinatalism seems to be the best outcome. I would love to be able to say, everybody have kids, everybody have a nice big family and do this, that, and the other thing. But when I'm looking at the world and seeing what actually goes on, independent of my feelings, whether I like them or not, I see a place where that's not a good idea. And I don't necessarily like that, because I realize, even though I'm witnessing a nightmare, I'm just as much a part of it. And I don't like that. But at the same time, I'm going to still talk about it. I'm going to say that this is the best answer we have. And unless you can come up with one, Mr. I Solve Morality, I'm going to be an anti-natalist. This did nothing for me. I'll just be upfront. You seem like an intelligent person, but this didn't do shit for me.
Moral subjectivists have insane positions where they think it's okay to not only kill themselves, but occasionally kill and eat mentally disabled people, for food.
Who is the person saying that's okay? What? Kill and eat mentally disabled people? Holy shit. I mean, I guess it was talking about animals or something. But as far as suicide goes, as far as I'm concerned, you have every right to take your life. I'm not going to go around encouraging it, but I'm not going to condemn someone who does that. I understand.
One person's feelings are not the basis of truth. Science is, which is more accurate in depicting what the best course of actions are for you and your community. That's basically the end of the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a nice day or night, everybody.
Well, I appreciate that. I guess you saved it for the end this time. But, yeah, that's about that. He's got some pig getting some milk, it looks like, in the picture. So we can just check out some of the comments real quick. Somebody wrote first. Good for you, perpetually annoyed. No brains in head. You're beginning with a negative. Start a fire to put out a fire seems ridiculous. Torture someone so you can heal them later. That's fucked. Sorry. Yeah, pretty much. It's a simpler way of putting it than what I did. Somebody wrote from High Point 1095 carbine. Man, High Point sucks. But anyways, this is why I like the anti-natalist position. It's easy to support, easy to explain with lots of evidence in favor of it. Pro-natalist arguments tend to be overly complex and hard to follow. Yeah, because there's really nothing to follow them to. I've yet to see a good reason to bring a child into this world that has nothing to do with just you wanting it to be there. That it just needs to exist. It's not how it works. And then somebody named the fluffy child. So somebody else's objective morality, that difference from yours is as objective? Yeah, pretty much. I guess if I could just qualify something as objective now, I could say my morality is the objective morality. All the nuances and stuff, that's objective. I mean, I don't know. I guess I am kind of being an ass when I say something like that, because he didn't really exactly say something to that effect, but, you know. Oh, and there's another vegan who wrote like another, holy crap, he wrote a novel, Lucio, holy shit. But anyways, I think that's that. Hopefully this is an alright video. Been a rough week, and, yeah, anyways, I think I'm just going to call it a day here, so I appreciate you guys listening. Thanks for listening, I guess is what I always say, and have a good one.